going to talk about all things medical terms. My friend Sully here wants to become a physician assistant, but he has told me that since he is studying to be a physician assistant and not an English teacher, learning all the word components seems to be a waste of time. Sully continues on to say that he will just memorize the words and not bother with the word parts or analysis. In this video, I'm going to explain to Sully and others about the foundations of medical terms, how medical terms and word parts work, and the importance of actually learning and not memorizing the words. Understanding medical terminology can seem like a lot at first, but it is actually more work trying to memorize all the words in the medical dictionary versus trying to understand it. Most words are a simple combination of different elements that include prefixes, suffixes, and word roots. Prefixes are placed at the beginning of a word root to make a word more specific. Suffixes are placed at the end of a word root to describe a condition or action to a body part. Root words are the main element within the medical term in which prefixes, suffixes, and connecting vowels are added to. These elements can be identified by specific characteristics. A prefix will precede a hyphen, a suffix will follow a hyphen, and a root word will be followed by a /. Root words are typically associated with a body part and are always the subject or main topic of the medical term. As previously mentioned, you can indicate a root word by a /. This slash is where the combining vowel, typically an O, connects to the word root. Combining a vowel to a word root is what we call a combining form. Let's take a look at some examples. Below, we have the combining form axillo, meaning armpit. Then we have the combining form erythro, meaning red. And lastly, we have neuro, which means nerve. Let's take a look at some prefixes and suffixes now. As previously mentioned, prefixes are placed at the beginning of a word root to make a word more specific. Not every medical term will have a prefix. Let's take a look at some examples. Bi means to. Notice that with this word element, it precedes a hyphen, indicating that it is a prefix. The prefix endo means in or within. The prefix hyper means excessive or above. Suffixes are placed at the end of a word root to describe a condition or action to a body part. They are found in all medical terms. Let's take a look at some examples. Itis means inflammation. Notice the dash before the suffix. As previously mentioned, this indicates that this word element is a suffix and not a prefix or word root. Next, we have phobia, which means fear. And lastly, we have algia, which means pain. Now that we have covered the important elements of a medical term, let's move on to building terms. A prefix will go at the beginning of the term followed by the root word, then the suffix. Keep in mind where the hyphen is to remind yourself which word element is which. Again, a root word will be followed by a /, a suffix will follow a hyphen, and a prefix will precede a hyphen. When building terms, there are some general rules that need to be followed. First, when reading the meaning of medical terms, we read from the suffix back to the beginning of the term and across. The second rule we follow is we drop the combining vowel when the suffix starts with a vowel. For example, gastritis is not spelled as gastroitis. We drop the O. Reading this term, we would start from the suffix and work our way up to the prefix if there are any present. Itis means inflammation, while gastro means stomach. Together, gastritis means inflammation of the stomach. Another example is nephritis. From right to left, we have itis, meaning inflammation, and nephro, meaning kidney. Together, we have inflammation of the kidney. One last example is electroencephalogram. Again, we start from the last word element. The suffix gram means record or record. The combining form encephalo means brain, and the prefix electro means electricity. Read together, electroencephalogram means record of electricity in the brain. Notice how we did not drop the combining vowel in this term. Because there are two word roots that makes up this term, we keep the combining vowel. We will discuss more about this rule in a couple of slides forward. Let's take a look at spelling. Looking at sacral and sarcoma, both of these words are similar in spelling when it comes to the root word, but they each have their own meaning. Spelling is very important when it comes to medical terms because one slight mistake can change up the whole meaning of a word. Sacral means sacrum, while sarco means flesh. Hyper and hypo are also very similar, but hyper means excessive, more than normal, while hypo means deficient, less than normal. Now let's talk about breaking down terms. As you can see, none of these terms have prefixes, which is totally normal. Gastroenterology has the combining form gastro and entero, and the suffix -ology. Notice that this term has two word roots. We keep the combining vowel between the two roots so that it will be spelled as gastroenterology and not gastroenterology. The suffix -ology means process of study, entero means intestine, and gastro means stomach. Together we have the study of the stomach and intestines. Our next example is hepatoma. We drop the O in the combining form hepto, and we have the suffix oma, reading malignant tumor of the liver. Lastly, we have gynecology. The combining form gyno with the suffixology means the study of women. Let's talk about some trig suffixes now. To begin with, we have gram, graph, and graphy. Gram means record, graph means an instrument for recording, and graphy means the process of recording. For example, electrosonography means the process of recording the electricity in the brain. Electrosonograph is the actual instrument used in the procedure, and the electrosenogram is the record of the electricity in the brain. Next, we have scope and scopy. These two are very similar in spelling. Scope means an instrument that is used to visually examine, while scopy means the process of visually examining. For example, if you are getting a colonoscopy done, the colonoscopy is the actual process of visually examining your internal organs, while the colonoscope is the tool used to examine them. Last but not least, we have tomy, ectomy, and stomy. These three suffixes may be pronounced and spelled similarly, but they all have different meanings. Tomy is the process of cutting, ectomy is an incision or removal, and stomy is an opening to form a mouth. Before we end this video, let's review the basic elements of a medical term. We have the root word, which is the foundation of the word. The suffix is a word ending, while the prefix is a small part attached to the beginning of the term. We have the combining vowel, which is usually the vowel O that links the root to the suffix or the root to another root. Last but not least, we have the combining form, which is the root word combined to the combining vowel. Some of these words may look intimidating, but it does not mean it has to be. Simply learning the basic prefixes, suffixes, and word roots will allow you to understand a lot of medical terminology.